But I suppose I've got my own story of hope, stories of hope. Because I've had some issues over the years with substance abuse and a long time ago, and with mental health issues. And that was why Kerry asked me to share. So, I won't make it a long one, obviously, but we've got alcoholism all through our family. Both my parents, John's spoken about it, and both my parents were alcoholics. And my grandparents were alcoholics, and I think John spoke about his mother committing suicide. My grandmother committed suicide through alcoholism and mental illness. As a young kid, I always had a lot of fear in my life, a lot of fear and anxiety as a young kid. And I look back and I know it was to do with my father, because my father was so full of fear. And he was like John when John spoke. My father used to get beaten up by his mother, and his mother was a violent alcoholic, and she used to beat him up every night. And so he was full of a lot of fear and anxiety. And my mother used to drink alcoholically when I was a kid, and she used to get quite violent as well, and she drank while I was in the womb. So, I mean, whether it was hereditary or whether it was environmental, I grew up with a lot of fear as a kid, and I used to feel life a lot, and used to have a lot of anxiety. And when I got into, I go to a 12-step program, and I still go to a 12-step program today. It's Alcoholics Anonymous. And I heard, when I got into AA, I heard that people said they felt like a square peg in a round hole. And that's how I felt all my life. So at a young age, I started to, I was a little bit rebellious. I didn't have the same exciting stories that these guys. Not exciting, but, you know. I started smoking when I was 11. I had a very addictive personality, and I started drinking at 14 years of age. And as soon as I had the first drink, I just felt so comfortable. I felt so peaceful. All of this anxiety and all of this fear that I had, you know, as a kid, it just went, and it filled me in and made me feel like I thought everyone else felt. It gave me a lot of confidence, and that was at 14. But it robbed from me very quickly, because I was one of those people. I found out later in life in AA that there's primary alcoholics and secondary alcoholics, and the primary alcoholics are basically born with it, and they have the it's in their genetics. And when they pick a drink up, they've got no on-off switch. They just got to keep drinking. So one drink leads to another, to another, and you just can't stop. Your goal is just to get as drunk as possible. And then there's the secondary alcoholics who, over the years, they're heavy drinkers, and they have problems in their lives, and through heavy drinking and through the problems, they then go over a thin red line, and their lives start to become problematic from the alcohol. So, but at a very young age, when I drank, I used to have large parts of the night just going and disappearing, and I couldn't remember how I got from here to here, or couldn't remember what happened the night before. And a lot of the time I had these, you know, vague memories of things that I did and violent things that I did. And so I wasn't a very nice kid, even though I was very shy and insecure and anxious. And I was used to do what everyone else did just to fit in. And so I hung around with a few other guys where we were living in Chatswood, and we used to go and get into a lot of trouble and drink a lot and smoke dope, and we used to go around bullying kids. There was a few of us. Not that I'm that big or anything, but, you know. And we used to, we'd break into the local high schools and the golf clubs after hours, and bottle those sometimes to get alcohol and to get things and that sort of stuff. Mum and Dad were really, really worried about us. Really worried. But, I mean, they were pretty liberal parents. They knew that I was going out with my mates and on the weekends and drinking, and I was allowed to smoke at home at 15, which sounds quite amazing. I mean, there's no one who would allow... I wouldn't allow my kids to smoke at home at 15, but they came from a different era to us and a different background. And they also thought, well, we might as well let them do these things at home so that they don't do them out there. But we were doing them out there as well. Yeah. So, anyway, Yeah, so I got into a bit of trouble, and Mum and Dad ended up moving us away from where we were living in Chatswood, because they were worried about what was going to happen to us and the influence we were having. So they actually got us away from there, and I ran into some of those guys later on in life, and one of them had ended up being a heroin addict and had all sorts of problems, and he was one of my best mates in Chatswood. So it was good that they got us away, but I was talking about mental health as well, and at the age of 16 I started to go through a really, really severe depression. My father had an my father had a heart attack, and as I said, I was quite an anxious person, and that really sent me into a tailspin. You know, the thought of, it's quite a serious heart attack, the thought of him losing his life and at a young age. Yeah, I started to get into this depression, and it got quite bad, and the black dog really got hold of me, and I just couldn't really see a way out of it. And I went along to a psychiatrist, and I was put on antidepressants, and I'd see the psychiatrist every now and again, and I started to get more and more hopeless, and I wasn't getting any better, and it was just like a dark tunnel. And I never planned suicide or anything like that. I never did, but there was many times that I just wished that I wasn't here, you know. I felt very hopeless, and of course I kept drinking, and the heavy drinking, made the interaction with the antidepressants worse, and made me feel worse, and made me feel more and more hopeless. And then, if I just fast forward a little bit, I had a lot of troubles over those years up until the time that I started work, with alcohol, with relationships, you know, getting into fights, forgetting a lot of the stuff that I did, having a lot of problems with Mum and Dad, and with friends and with girlfriends, and my life was just getting worse and worse, really. And then I started work at the AMP Society. It was my first job out of school, and I was studying part-time, and I started to have a couple of work functions. One of them I ended up having some really bad problems. I got very, very drunk at a pub in the Rocks, and the police were called, and because I was doing stuff when I was drunk that I couldn't remember, and apparently I was throwing salt and pepper shakers out the window at cars or something. And that's just not the sort of stuff that you do as an 18-year-old. Yeah, so as I say, that with me that was mainly blackouts. I didn't go out just to have a couple of drinks. I just kept drinking and drinking and drinking, and I couldn't stop. And then another time I woke up out of a blackout on the reception of the AMP Society, pinned down by a security guard. It was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So they were pretty much saying, mate, you've got to get out of this company. And a few more of those situations happened. There's a few more situations after that where I just thought, look, my life's just not getting better. I was very, very badly depressed. I hated myself. I hated my life. I used to go to bed at night and just cry out I had a bit of a faith. I cried out to a God that I didn't really understand at the time. I said, God, if you're up there, can you help me? I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing. I hate my life. I hate myself. I hate everything. Can you help me? My father he'd gone to Alcoholics Anonymous over the years, so I knew all about it. And it's strange, I didn't know that I had a problem, you know, with all of this going on. I thought it was everyone else's problem. I thought I could control drinking. I used to run marathons. I thought if I get really, really fit again, then I'll be able to control the drinking, and that was just a load of crap, basically. And I learned in AA many years later that you couldn't do it through willpower. It had to be total abstinence. And then you had to that was the first step, admitting you're powerless over alcohol and that your lives are unmanageable. And then the second step came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. So it had to be total abstinence. I was just short of my 20th birthday, so 20 years of age, that I went along to an AA meeting. And as I say, I knew about it because of my father. Going to AA and getting sober, and we used to go as well as kids to Alateen, which was basically the children of alcoholics, so they'd become aware of the alcoholism. And when I went along to my first meeting, I just broke down because I thought maybe, just maybe, I can be happy in this life. You know, maybe, just maybe, I can get some joy in my life because I was just so depressed and my soul was so destroyed just through all of this. Yeah, it's just my journey. And I'll be 60 next year, and I can honestly say I haven't had a drink for 40 years next year if I stay sober, God willing. Yeah, thank you. And that's been not due to me, that's been due to the help of a 12-step fellowship, Alcoholics Anonymous. People in there helped me get sober. It's been due to a local church. You know, I've been involved in churches over the years, and now I'm with C3B. And, you know, the faith, a guide who's helped me through that and helped me through the journey, and all of those wonderful people along the way. I keep going along to AA on a weekly basis, and there's a couple of reasons why I do it, because if ever I think I can pick a drink up again, firstly, I can't. You know, I've seen many people over the years in AA start drinking again, and some of them have actually drunk themselves to death. Some have ended up in jail through blackouts and then getting into problems and doing things when they were under the influence. Some have just, as Scotty said, on the revolving door and going down and spiralling downwards into mental illness and, you know, in and out of mental institutions. And you know, some just lead very, very despondent and unhappy lives. So I do that, but also my wife, Lily, she's never seen me drink, and I was an absolute horror when I drank. And her life would be a misery. And I also like to go back to give back and try to help the newcomer get sober, because if everyone left Alcoholics Anonymous when they got sober, there'd be no one to help the newcomer. So we all in there try to help sponsor new people. You help them through the 12 steps, which is like a process of restoration, going back and cleaning up the past, making amends to people that you've hurt, you know, and just restoring your life. So that's the second reason to give back. But I mean, since being sober, life has still happened, and I've still had tough times at times. And that brought me back to another time. Both of my parents have passed away, and you know, that's very sad. Very sad, and it's something that I'll never get over. You just don't get over your parents passing away. My mother died of long-standing illness with cancer, bone cancer, at 65 years of age. And my father died of emphysema, and he was sick for quite a few years. And I was primarily on the front line of looking after them because my sister was in Queensland. My brother was very busy with his work and his family. And, you know, Lily and I don't have kids. And so it really took its toll, that, just sort of being there for them the whole time. And then there was one time when when my mother had passed away, and my father was in his last sort of few years. And I was going through a really tough time at work for an extended period of time. There was some issues with some people there, and as a result, they were trying to performance manage me, you know, due to personality things. But at the same time, I'd started studying an MBA, and I was doing that after work, and whilst I was caring for my dad. So I'd go to work, have all of this stress at work. Depending on, it got worse over the years. I'd go home, visit Dad, drive down to the beaches, or go to his hospital, or go to palliative care, depending on when it was. And then I'd go home and study for the MBA until sort of all hours in the morning, get up and do it all again. And I just got to the point when I was just physically, emotionally, mentally, just completely gone. I was completely spent. And at this time I was still going along to AA, I was still going along to church, you know, I still had my faith. But I was just completely gone, and I remember I was outside of the hospital one day, and I'd had a bit of a disagreement on the phone with someone, and next thing I just went berserk in the car, and I just started yelling out at the top of my voice and screaming and just going ballistic. And I thought, where did that come from, you know? and I think I was just, as I say, just completely spent. And anyway, a few months went by, and my dad passed away, and that was one of the most tragic things in my life, because I lost my mum, and then I had my dad, and then I lost my dad, and then we don't have kids, and then it was like, that's it. There's nothing above, there's nothing below. I'm an orphan. That's how I felt. So that happened, but then I actually did my final exam a week after Dad's funeral. So it was actually good in a way. There was a bit of a distraction with that study. But 3 or 4 months later, I thought I was going okay. I thought the grieving was going okay. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I started to get the most incredible anxiety. I started to have panic attacks. I started to be just fearful about anything and everything. It didn't matter what it was. Lily would say, these people, friends, they want to go out. And I said, I don't want to go out. I don't want to see anyone. All I wanted to do was just stay at home, see no one, have no responsibility. I burst into tears out of nowhere. This was about 10 years ago. So I didn't know what was going on, and it was very, very frightening and very scary, because I'd always enjoyed spending time with people. I'd always, loved the company of people and been quite social, and I didn't want to have anything to do with anyone. And I was very, very scared. And then the depression started to set in, because I started to get hopeless, thinking, is this just going to get worse, And I'd be sitting at the table with Lily Cross, and we'd be having dinner, and I'd get a panic attack. And I'd even feel uncomfortable sitting there with my own wife, and then I'd have fear about how I was coming out, and it was just absolutely bizarre. So this is, I suppose, a story of hope. Lily and Kerry said, talk about the substance abuse and talk about the mental illness. So that's what I'm talking about, yeah. So, but I got through it, and I got through it one day at a time, just like I got through. I got sober one day at a time. They said, you don't have to get sober for the rest of your life. Like, you don't have to have a drink for the rest of your life, just for the day, And just for the day, you cannot have a drink. And then you get up to the next day, and just for the day, you won't have a drink. And I didn't only do it through AA, I did it through my faith. God got me sober, God kept me sober. God gave me the strength. God did for me what I couldn't do for myself. And then with this, I chose not to go on antidepressants again, but I found a really good counsellor. So I think you were talking about counselling, Scotty, before, about one day, and the counsellor really helped me, and they helped me through it, and a supporting and loving wife. Yeah, it takes me. Yeah, it takes me. I'm sorry to cry. But it just takes me back to how I was feeling back then, because I was feeling very hopeless. Yeah, and loving and supporting family and some fantastic friends, and a wonderful church. Good mates that I've known Joel for years. A wonderful church, and the church is my family today. C3 Burwood. So I got through that. Through all of those things, and today I can still get anxious at times about some things. Little things can rattle me sometimes, and I can start to get a bit anxious. I think, hang on, just bring it back to the moment. It's one day at a time. You've gotten through many things before, you'll get through this again, I've done it through, I say that the Lord Jesus Christ, He's my strength. He's my hope. Without Him, I couldn't have done any of this. So, I'll just leave it at that, Kerry. Thanks very much. Yeah.